Now, let's go ahead and talk about some craziness with the official Trump meme token. So I actually saw this over on Twitter initially, and let me go pull that up. I thought I had that pulled up. Apparently I do not. So we need to go to the real Donald Trump, and we're going to talk about it. So essentially what we saw on Truth Social and then later on here on Twitter was this tweet for, or basically a retweet on his main account for an official Trump meme coin. And it says it's time to celebrate everything we stand for, winning. Join his special Trump community and get your Trump now. So you head on over to gettrumpmemes.com. This is pretty nuts. I don't know. I saw this popping and I was like, what the hell is going on? And essentially what you can see here is they have this all built out and the contract address is down here. It's a Solana contract address. Now, as you guys know, I'm a proof of work guy. I'm not a big fan of Solana or proof of stake, and Solana is one of the worst proof of stake options as far as centralization and so on. Very interesting to see him launch on there, especially considering all of the tokens that have basically been rug pulled and so forth on that particular platform and the means in which he went ahead and did it. But if we wanted to look at it even more, they do have allocation here, which you can take a look at. And I gotta say, initial reactions to this, like if I saw this essentially from any other account, I would immediately think, well, this is going to get rug pulled. This is kind of scammy. I don't trust it. And that's because you do have a massive amount of pre-allocation to a lot of different people. So you have 36% to creators, you have 18% to the creators in CIC Digital, whatever those are, and 18% to CIC Digital number 3. It has 10% for liquidity, 10% for public distribution, and then even some more for different groups. So you got 4% for more CIC Digital, and then another 2%, and then another 2%. So a lot of stuff locked up, and they did put all of their unlocked durations. And right now you can see the lockup durations for the shortest term on the 36%, which is the largest, is going to be 3 months, and then an unlocked duration of 24 months. And then that kind of goes up from there all the way up to 12 months or a year at the end of the day. This is pretty nuts, but I'm going to give you some. So first of all, I'm going to say, if you see these tokenomics in any other project, you probably want to stay away in general because you could end up losing a lot of crypto. This is pretty nuts. I keep saying nuts because it's nuts. This is currently now, as of today, the sitting US president with a meme token on Solana. And I don't know if you guys have had that sink in yet, but I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm going to have a controversial opinion here. So I personally am a proof of work guy. Solana is not a proof of work blockchain. It's a proof of stake blockchain. The difference is that a proof of work blockchain has some intrinsic value basically through the energy it costs to produce that particular coin or token. So in the case of Bitcoin, you have a cost to mint that's directly related to a real world asset of energy, right? And that is where you can get at least a base level power. And this is why you can see what's known as the halving cycle, where every 4 years when Bitcoin halves, the cost to mint Bitcoin goes up for energy, and therefore also directly correlates to the price of the Bitcoin going up, because essentially miners have to get paid for that. So you have that baseline value, or some people would say like an intrinsic value. Others would argue, of course, even proof of work doesn't have any intrinsic value. I'll leave that up to you. I argue it does, because you are based off of a real world asset of energy. to produce that particular product. In the case of proof of stake, the energy consumption is a lot lower because all you have to have is basically a Raspberry Pi to stake in a node, or in a lot of cases, like, you don't even personally have to have that. And so all the value comes from essentially selling for more to the next guy than you bought it for, right? And then you do have, of course, basically fees off of those that are going back and forth. There's different forms of proof of stake, but at the very base level, that's really all you need to understand as to why I'm typically against proof of stake over proof of work as a baseline. That being said, also tokens pose an increased risk due to the fact that you are in a position where you can create tokens easier and sell them and trade them easier. So barrier to entry is directly proportional to how quickly one could basically get a turnaround on sales. In this particular case, we are on the Solana blockchain. It can happen extremely quickly. But I will say this, we have a couple things happening right now in the blockchain space as it pertains to regulation. One being Gary Gensler getting pushed out of the SEC, which is going to, and basically a crypto-friendly replacement, presumably. And then we have the President of the United States releasing something that at the end of the day would be heavily regulated. And it's going to be interesting how those regulations are adjusted. There are going to be a lot of people that say, well, you need regulation within cryptocurrency. And I tend to disagree with that. I understand people can get hurt and lose a lot of money, etc. And regulation is supposed to solve for that. But I think that personal responsibility is more important. Personal responsibility and your freedom is more important than your security. So that's how I lean towards it. I think there are very clear-cut cases where, you could say this is completely illegal. Obviously, straight up theft would be completely illegal, that sort of thing. What this kind of speaks to me as is a lightening of regulation in the crypto space as a whole. And so I count that as a net positive because more freedoms surrounding the crypto space will help with innovation. Now, that does mean, since we have that example here, that you run a much higher risk of having bad projects being invested in bad things and losing a lot of money. So play all of these at your own risk. I have done a guide on this. The reason I did a guide on how to purchase and swap and utilize these platforms is because I realized within our particular space, we're getting to the point of the proof of work guys are turning into, at least the way I see it, the boomers of crypto, right? And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. One, we remember the ethos of crypto and the Bitcoin white paper, and that's a good thing to educate the younger crowds on. But in addition to that, we aren't necessarily fully up to date on how to utilize different platforms, how to go through contract addresses, even the differences between a coin and a token for the best, well, basically the best way I can explain that. So I have done videos on that in the past, but I think it was a good little walkthrough. And that brings me to the second part of this, where I see positive coming out. And I bet we're going to get some, pushback, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And I see a lot of negative opinions surrounding these particular launches, especially from the proof of work community. And I fully understand why, but stick with me. One of the big things that's going to happen thanks to this is a ton of liquidity being added to the cryptocurrency ecosystem. And that means that over time, that will spread out across the entire ecosystem as people start playing with different projects, learning more about cryptocurrency, and so on and so forth. So it's actually our job to explain to them things like proof of work versus proof of stake and why it has some sort of base level value. It's important to explain like the safety and security of, securing your wallets. There are a lot of things that you can take this opportunity to teach people about cryptocurrency, and it's bringing a lot more people into the space in general. And that brings me to my third point, because a lot of people are obviously calling this a rug and so on and so forth. I don't see this as a planned rug. We're talking about the sitting president of the United States. I don't think we know the personality of Trump in this particular setup, and he is, somebody that cares a lot about what people think about him. In fact, what I have seen from people talking about this project in particular, and obviously it's kind of waned a little bit today, but we've been seeing the Trump campaign, or whoever it is that started this token, buying up a lot of the supply when it dips. And that's a really interesting factor here that I think people aren't taking into account. It could be a complete rug pull in 3 years. I would definitely say start watching out in 3 years, right? When everything unlocks and he's about to be out of his presidency. Maybe we have a crazy rug pull from the sitting president of the United States, and he pieces out, pardons himself and pardons his family and pulls out, and then everything's just destroyed. That could be a possibility. Do I think that's likely? No, because I think that desire to be liked will still be there, regardless if he's a sitting president or not. I could be wrong, but I just don't see this as bad as people are perceiving it to be, or the talks that people are having surrounding it. Once again, let me clarify. It's on a proof of stake chain, which is, in my opinion, not good. The tokenomics are really bad and should have you worried a little bit if you were to see this in anything else, with the amount of supply that is going basically to developers or the Trump insiders, that sort of thing. Whoever the insiders are, that is something to pay attention to. So moving on from there, though, we basically, right after that, the day after, if you go back to Donald Trump's official Twitter post, and you see that Melania posts a meme token as well with the contract address at melaniameme.com. So now the First Lady has a token, which is like, you thought it was crazy that they released one. Well, they're releasing two, and maybe it'll be 3 or 4 or 5. It's getting to the point of ridiculous. I do agree. It seems a little ridiculous, but at the same time, the amount of attention that this draws, I think, is a net positive overall to the space, because people will at least look and say, hey, what is going on? What is actually happening here? And then obviously regulations as far as that's concerned too. Now, both of these websites have been stood up like immediately, right? And that is within like a day of the launch of the token. It was a very fast, hard, and loose type deal. You can see here that the token distribution is actually pushed out a little bit different. I honestly thought that we were seeing or witnessing hacks at a certain point, and that we were going to get a report that, all of these were essentially just posts from some token dev that was going to rug pull everyone right before the inauguration, and then that was going to be it and done. But apparently that's not the case, because as you can see on and maybe it will be, maybe they haven't caught it because they're so busy, and this has been one of the greatest gotchas of all time, which is like somebody hacked in, knew they were going to be busy and not paying attention to their Twitter account and posted contract addresses. Maybe, I don't think so, because we've seen even references from Eric Trump on this and so on and so forth. But as you can see, like, this is also streaming the inauguration, and all of the victory rally and all that stuff is being streamed to this official account right now. So somebody that runs the Twitter account has to be aware of the post that's right below these, right? It goes victory rally, it goes presidential parade, it goes 60th presidential inauguration ceremony, and then boom, Solana token. It seems to me as if, this would be spotted right away. But keep that in mind. I guess there is always these potentials, right? This is nuts. This is crazy. So the token distribution, once again, if I saw this in any other space, I would be like, watch out. Now, why do I say watch out? So everybody that's coming into this basically wanting to know what a proof of work guy thinks about the Trump and Melania meme tokens, right? And you want to know why we think it's bad, what's wrong specifically with the tokenomics. When you see tokenomics like this, it means that the developers control a majority of the token distribution, which means that the actual liquidity in the current market while you're buying is not the actual total liquidity when it unlocks, and they can basically do what's called dumping, which is selling all of those tokens onto the network at one time, basically pulling the proverbial rug out from under everyone and leaving everybody that invested in it with zero. If we look at cryptocurrency as a whole and the ethos behind a lot of it, what we usually look for are things that are called fair launches. And there are, to be fair, a lot of different definitions of fair launches, right? Fair launch could mean that you airdrop all the tokens to, basically random addresses. We've heard of that with tokens, right? You could basically set all of them to be minted and allow everybody to mint at the same time. This is powered by Radiant now, which is a really cool thing. Or in the case of cryptocurrency, right, like an actual blockchain like Bitcoin, it's launched into the public on the same day for mainnet, and there's no pre-mine essentially, and you have two people, or basically everybody can begin mining it at the same time. It's fair for everybody to start participating at the same time. There's nothing that could happen there as far as getting sold out. So that's why these types of tokenomics are looked at negatively. And this one is pretty much the same thing, except that we have, I believe, a shorter time of vesting with a year on the months here. Full vesting in a year and 1 month at 13 months. So this one could, in theory, I suppose, dump faster than the Trump token. That is completely possible. And then the terms and conditions are here. They're interesting. They seem pretty basic as far as what you would see in any other terms of service surrounding these things, how they will apply legally, and so on. If you take a look here, this will be really interesting to see, what the regulatory stance surrounding all this is. Now, if this was not done by the First Lady, without the knowledge of the First Lady and the President, then it's going to be a really bad time, vice versa, for cryptocurrency and regulation. So keep that in mind. That could happen. But I think overall, net positive, bringing a lot of attention. The other reason I don't necessarily think that we are witnessing something that is not directly from Trump and, of course, the First Lady, Melania, is because we've seen massive listings for this on crypto.com, Coinbase, Binance, all the large exchanges. I mean, we have crypto.com sponsoring the UFC with Dana White basically being their massive, one of their largest partners, also being in Trump's kind of Trump's little gang, I suppose you could say. So I think it's probably the case to where they are fully aware of this for all of those reasons. I mean, you even know that crypto.com is out there right now. I was seeing pictures out with crypto.com and their crew participating in all the festivities for the inauguration today. So that is also happening. I'm sure they're talking about this as we talk about it right now. I expect a lot of people will watch this later. A lot of people are probably even live watching the Trump festivities as we speak. Maybe there'll be a lull. But now we're just waiting on all the rumors and the rest of the tokens to launch. And it's going to take some time, I think, to really realize how much of an impact this is going to have, how positive or negative it will be. I'd like to hear your thoughts, of course, in the comment section and the live chat. Do you think this is a net positive or a net negative? So we'll do a poll here. The Trump meme a positive? Boom. And we'll start the poll there so we can see what everybody's thinking as far as that is concerned. If we move on from this, you can take a look at, I wanted to talk about this real quick because what you're about to see is essentially probably a lot more of these. And there is the possibility of doing extremely well if you get in extremely early, right? If you were able to find the contract address within minutes of them tweeting them, and then you were able to trade and actually get some in your wallet. I mean, the fact of the matter is you can get in before the dumps begin, right? At the end of the day, the thing is you're also, it's a PvP game, right? We're playing a PvP game here. If somebody buys a crap ton of it at sub penny and then you get in at $3, that sub penny guy is probably already out and a millionaire. And that's what happens in these cases. It doesn't mean that the devs or the team is doing anything. You can even see the big drop here recently. I think it's at $35. But, there were people in here getting it, if you got in at $8 or whatever it is, you're way up as it is. So that is this game. It's gambling and it's getting in early. I would give you a tip on getting in early on these things. A lot of the times the Solana network gets congested. So utilizing either Phantom Wallet to do your swaps or utilizing a platform like Jupiter to do your swaps will fail, and they'll fail so often and so much. And look, we're watching this dip right here. You'll fail so often and so much that essentially you end up in a position where your buy-in price is extremely high. So if you want to get in when these are actually launched, that would be the only time that I would say, maybe throw a gamble at it and put 0.1 in, right? And grab whatever you can if you want. That could be it, but don't put anything more in that you don't want to lose. And the big key here is you do have to use like some sort of centralized platform. I use ape.pro, and the reason I utilize ape.pro in particular is because it is from Jupiter and it has basically a little bit more notoriety surrounding it. You'll be able to swap within ape.pro. You can still send that back out to your address. I went over that guide, but this is the only way I was able to get anything below, a couple dollars for Melania and Trump when they launched, was using a platform like this. Some people were asking me. I like to teach people stuff. So this is something, it's a tool you can utilize. Be extremely careful with it. And as you can see, like you could buy right now and then lose a bunch of money, and then you could buy right now and make a bunch of money right away. It's going to be all over the place. And make sure also, if you're going to do this and it's like an official account like this, that you actually just find the contract address, and copy that real address out from an official account. So then you can just paste it into the search and get the actual token, right? That's an important thing to note if you're looking at any of these. Do I suggest you go buy Melania and Trump right now? No, I always say mine it, don't buy it. If you want to swap over something you've mined to be risky with it at the end of the day, that's on you. That's you know, that's up to you. So I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. If you would like to see more from this particular episode, take a look up here. Don't forget to also subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support me directly, you can go to sonofatech.locals.com and become a member. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday.